Payday 3, from a mechanical perspective and gameplay, is a wonderful game and a wonderful experience. I have a lot of fun with it. I know the people that I play with have a lot of fun with it too. But a common gripe that both myself and people that I've talked with in the community has been its user interface and user experience. My name's Pepe Chad. Today we're going to be taking a heuristic evaluation for UI UX analysis in Payday 3. And if anybody's wondering what those big $100 words mean, I'll get to it here in a little bit. But I just wanted to start off with some importance about why you should care, about why Starbreeze should care about anything that I have to say in this presentation. And here's why. Now, admittedly, most of these reviews of this 39% positive have come from servers don't work, game don't work, I paid $40 for a main menu simulator. And rightfully so. Those people were in their right to review bomb this game and crap on it on launch, on release, right? That was totally within their right. But if you dig into these reviews, you will find a lot of people making negative comments, and again, rightfully so, about the user interface and user experience. It might not be phrased in those technical terms, but whenever you drill down to it, it's exactly what's at the core. So Payday 3 at the moment can use anything and everything at its disposal to improve the reviews of this game, yes, but to improve the game experience more importantly, right? So that it can recover some of this publicity as well as just, more importantly, increase the game experience. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. What are the ways that Payday 3 can increase its user experience and better it so that it's a better game as a whole? That's what we're going to dive into today. Here's the table of contents for what we'll talk about. First off, we're going to drill into what this presentation and talk will be versus what it will not be. So we're going to establish some scope. We're going to talk about heuristics at a high level. That's just going to be briefly, hey, what are they? Why do we care? And we're going to go into a very voluminous heuristic analysis. That will be the majority of this presentation. All right, what are these heuristics and why should we care? And what do they drill down to? What do they talk about? And then we'll have some conclusions as we walk away, gathered as much knowledge as we have from this discussion, and be able to walk away from the table saying, hey, these are some things we can do, right? Instead of just pointing things out and saying these are wrong, we proverbially, the developers of this game, also the community, can walk away saying, oh, these are some ways we can move forward. Okay, what this presentation is. So this presentation will be a constructive criticism of Payday 3's user interface, or its UI as I'll refer to it here on out. User interface is somewhat cumbersome of a phrase. And user experience, equivalently a cumbersome phrase, I'll refer to it as UX. So user interface is the design, the front end that the end user, the player, interacts with and navigates through the application. And the user experience includes the user interface as well as the user's experience navigating the interface. And overall, just what kind of time do they have, right? Do they have a pleasant experience going from point A to point B, or do they feel like it's nails on chalkboard trying to buy favors? That's a nudge at something in the future. We're going to take a heuristic approach today. Now, we'll talk about what heuristics are in a second. I know I'm alluding to it, but to be specific, we'll be using Nielsen's 10 heuristics. I come from a healthcare background. That's what my education's in, and I have some training and some experience with UX. So that's where my background comes from, and that's what I'm trained in. So we'll be using Nielsen's 10 heuristics for this conversation. And of course, in this presentation, we'll also be discussing potential solutions so that we're not just pointing something out that's wrong and not even suggesting anything to fix it. I am not a developer at Starbreeze. I can't say, yeah, I'm going to go do this to fix it now, right? I don't have that scope or authority, but we can at least point out some potentials, right? What this is not. So first off, this is not a flagrant insulting of Payday 3. All right, if anything comes out of my mouth and it's not constructive, it's because I misspoke. I want to use this as a platform to increase visibility about the game state as well as increase the game state. This will also not be server down why complaining or pointing out anything that happened within the first week about servers down outside of error messages. Right, this presentation and talk is focused on UX and UI, and to the degree that players could not play the game in the first place, it became a functional programming server architecture issue, not a UX issue. So those are two kind of different things, and that falls outside of the scope, and that's a totally different discussion. This will also not be a gameplay or mechanic evaluation outside of what the users experience on the menus or navigating the game in general. So there's an entire other discussion for what should be changed in terms of in the game, how the mechanics play out, how the users feel when they play the game. Different discussion. That's also not what this is. Okay. What in the heck are these heuristics things that this guy keeps talking about? Why does he keep using this buzzword? Well, it's because it's used a lot in industry when evaluating UX. But heuristics are rules of thumb. That's what they are. They are best practices, they are guidelines, and they are often used in inspective analysis. By definition, heuristic analysis is an inspective analysis. But following them during application design maximizes positive user experience. We'll be following Nielsen's 10 heuristics, and what this presentation will look like in the future is we're going to identify one heuristic, then we're going to break it down into separate components or areas inside of the game's UI UX that can be improved inside of that heuristic. So that's going to be the plan moving forward. As I look around for my water bottle and can't find it. I'm already getting parched. We're like 7 minutes in. That's not a good idea. Or a good show. A good omen. Okay. Heuristic number 1. Visibility of system status. Now, remind you, some of these are worded in a medical or more technical non-video game jargon. Because what this paradigm is designed to do is evaluate electronic medical records. Now, as far as UX UI goes, it can be translated to video games, but I'm just copying pasting the names over to kind of also give a little exposure outside of video games for anybody who's interesting or who is interested in that. So number 1, visibility of system status. Here's what this means. Does the user know what the program, Payday 3, is doing or the state of the program? In this case, Payday 3 has micro states. For example, you have, loadouts. So you can have the state of your loadout or the state of your gun, like whether or not your gun is purchased or not. That can be a micro state, so to speak. And of course, like if your game is matchmaking, you want to know, hey, I want to have a menu pop up or something tell me that I am currently matchmaking. That's system status. Here's the first flaw that I've found in my heuristic analysis of Payday 3 for visibility of system status. Favors. The only way currently to identify whether or not you have a certain favor in your inventory is to queue into a lobby for a heist and look to see what's available. There's no current way to look at which favors you have or don't have inside of the vendor's menu, inside of your loadout. There's no inventory for favors. Quick fix for this is just to add one to the main menu. Just add a favors or an inventory tab just to see what you have, right? Additionally, this kind of plays with the heuristic that comes later, but understanding which favors you have for specific heists instead of just, I queue into it and now I have an additional secure point. Wow, that wasn't there before. Also, how the heck did I get that? Other conversations to be had, but favors is a big one for visibility of system status. The friend system. Okay, so the social tab, when you click P in the game, is not intuitive. And we're holding ourselves to a gold standard here of UI UX in that we're not simply accepting, oh, it works, so it's okay. No, we want it to be user-friendly, user-intuitive, and have aesthetic and minimalist design. We'll talk about that later. But here, there are problems and have been reported problems of users not being able to report seeing some of their friends online. I haven't encountered this, but it has been empirically fed back to me through non-formal channels. And a large problem of this is the differentiation between Nebula and Steam. You can have friends on both of those platforms, and the fact that they are in two channels makes things complicated needlessly. If there's any solution to this problem, some form of better merging of identifying your friends and seeing them in your menu instead of them, differentiated between Steam friends, Payday, and offline, right? Just have one like, hey, these are your online friends, right? I don't always need to know or have a menu differentiation that, oh, this guy is online and he's PC, so he goes in Steam friends. And if he's Xbox app, he goes in Payday, right? Like, I just need to know if they are online, and that's it. So again, some of this gripe and criticism plays into later heuristics, but I wanted to put it in this section to show that, hey, there's a functional issue sometimes, and it's clunky to see who's online and who's not. Mask on versus mask off. Interesting that a UX issue from inside of the gameplay shows up, but this needs to be said here. Here's a question. Let's play some trivia. Which character on the left is masked up? If you guessed Sneaky Banana, you would be correct, but the way to tell that is not very intuitive. The way that you would tell that in this case is that one health bar is blurred out while the other is not. One loses opacity and the other remains opaque. That is not an intuitive, user-friendly way to identify who has a mask on during the game. A suggested solution for this could be, matter of fact, it was actually Mr. Sneaky Banana there that mentioned this. Take the character's portrait and take an image of whatever mask they're wearing and stick it on their face. Change the image. So that way you understand, oh, that is Sneaky Banana and he has a mask on. Not, oh, that is Sneaky Banana and his health bar isn't blurred out, so he must have his mask on, right? That's not good UX, and that's not intuitive. So there's an issue and a change for you. Gun attributes. We need quantitatives and we need numbers. These horizontal qualitative attribute bars do really nothing except give a vague idea of what a gun does. In terms of min-maxing, which a lot of us are doing right now and asking, like, hey, what's the best builds for these guns? Instead of spending an inordinate amount of time testing or doing our own evaluation for these things, having some qualitative numbers, having some tangentials that we can compare against each other would be incredibly helpful to have a better understanding of the state of our guns. Like, what the heck is going on here? Additionally, there's attachments, right? Here I have an example of hybrid muzzle brake. Here you see plus vertical recoil, plus horizontal recoil, minus targeting speed. Okay, so first, what the heck does it mean, vertical recoil? Like, of course, it means the gun shooting up in the vertical direction, but like, by how much, right? Or like, Horizontal recoil, is that the same amount as vertical recoil or not? Same thing with targeting speed. How do I know how much quicker or slower my gun is going up to my ADS? Additionally, like, does the plus sign for recoil mean it increases its recoil or decreases? Is it a positive attribute or a negative attribute? Right? So you can intuit some of these things after playing the game a bunch of times, but that's, again, not good UX. We want to present these things in a way that a lay user, somebody who picks up the game, understands, oh, hey, when I put this hybrid muzzle brake on my gun, my vertical recoil decreases by 10%. So it's a plus sign, so it's a positive attribute, and I know that it's decreasing by 10%. That gives me a better idea of what this does before I buy it. And by the way, some of these attachments are crypto, and they are expensive, like 50 expensive. We also need a way to try them out and get a feel for them. Some sort of targeting range in a hideout or something. A way to test out an attachment set, right? That's ideal, and that would be somewhat of a large change. But for good UX, being able to try out these products before we buy them, that's industry standard in most parts of the world, so I don't see why it couldn't be done in a video game. That's heuristic number 1. And so you're kind of getting the flow of what we're doing here. We're going to jump into each one until that number on the right reaches 10, and then we'll be wrapped up. Take a swig. Water here real quick. Match between system and the real world. That is our heuristic number 2. Does the nomenclature inside of Payday 3 match up with applications outside of Payday 3? So is the language the same? That's really what this is asking. And here's the biggest one I've got for this. IP, or infamy points, is not functionally the same, excuse me as I switch tabs, is not functionally the same as XP, right? These two are functionally equivalent, so IP is doing the same thing as XP would in another video game, but they are different. XP is earned from just killing stuff or doing map objectives. IP is done by completing challenges. So there's some functionally equivalent yet different aspects of this that makes it very non-intuitive. And for general purposes, resorting back to experience points or XP, it will provide the best UX. A lot of the community is calling that for that right now, just resorting back to an XP system based on how much cash you're getting out of the heists or the difficulty, whatever it is, whatever Starbreeze chooses, resorting back to that. And I stand behind them. I really do. Number 3, that one was pretty quick. Heuristic number 3, user control and freedom. Does the user have control and freedom over Payday 3? There are a couple instances where that's not the case. First up is an unready function. This is currently in the works by Starbreeze, but I wanted to point it out anyway. Having an unready function to change something in your loadout so you don't hard commit, right, into readying up for a lobby, that's industry standard and we need that. But they're working on it, so let's see that as soon as possible. A lobby kick. I don't know. I couldn't think of a good image for this, so I just found a dude kicking. When somebody joins a lobby in Payday 3, they can't get removed by any means, other than matchmaking errors and them leaving. So that's a problem, because if griefers ever start to gain some traction and that becomes really popular, they can just join a public lobby and grief however their heart desires, and there's nothing we can do about it. So either adding a host kick function, so the host of the lobby kicks whoever they want, or a vote to kick, which would probably be more realistic, that whoever can initiate a vote to kick, and then people can vote on it, and then the result does the result there. Either one of those would be acceptable and fine, but having people just like randomly join and you're like, oh, hey, I put it to friends only and I don't want friends in here, like I made a mistake, I'm going to kick you, a Steam message you, whatever, that's needed. Moving right along, heuristic number 4, consistency and standards. Does Payday 3 currently use industry standards inside of its applications? So in this case, it would be video game industry standards. Now, this would be more like, instead of nomenclature and language, this is like best practices or system architecture. Does Payday 3 use some of these inside of its game? And of course, I'm going to go right back to IP and XP, right? The rest of the world uses experience points. Users are left wondering, like, how do I even level up? What do I have to do to level up? And then they find about this IP thing, and they're like, okay, is IP the equivalent to XP? I mean, 50% of the word is the same, like one letter, right? And of course, I'll just resort back to the comment of resorting back to experience points for the best user experience. I understand that Starbreeze has their own thing going on with IP. They think this thing is like really cool and it's like a new step forward and it's something different and something new, and I can respect ingenuity. However, ingenuity is not impetus to ignore industry best practice. And when the community is calling for a recall of such a best practice gone awry, it's generally a sign to revert back to what generally works, right? Okay, heuristic number 5, error prevention. That subtitle is wrong. This should read, does Payday 3 prevent the user from getting into error-prone situations? So, right, error handling is one thing. Does Payday 3 prevent you from even getting to the point of committing an error? And no, this is not the refund you're thinking of. If you're that kind of guy, you're probably not watching this video, and you likely already got your Payday 3 refunded. What I'm talking about is in-game purchases with either cash or cryptocurrency. So if you buy a gun, there's no way to refund that purchase. You are locked in. And the same thing goes with attachments. Same thing goes with masks. Anything in the game. There's no reversal of any purchases whatsoever. It's not necessarily a problem, and I'm not pointing it out as a massive problem, right? Generally in UX, you rate issues on a scale of 0 to 4. 0 meaning minimal impact, take care of it when you've got literally nothing else to do. And 4 being you cannot release this product unless if you deal with this thing. This is a 0, right? This is, I mean, you may not even want to change it, but it could be something worth thinking of. Adding a refund system within a time frame or before you go into a heist for some sort of element would give users an extra way to revert changes if they didn't mean to. But this could be a potential gateway for exploits. I know from a coding perspective, there could be potentials here. So it may not be a wormhole worth opening up. But it's something that I thought about, and it was an idea. This is one of those more like, it's not a problem, but think about it. Number 6, recognition rather than recall. Does Payday 3 require the user to remember details instead of transferring them? This is a heuristic that doesn't apply always to video games. In the world of electronic medical records, you're dealing with patients that have multiple functions being executed for them, such as orders getting put in or transfers or data queries, stuff like that. You have to transfer those data values from application to application or from module to module, widget to widget in an EMR. And you don't want the person to do that. You want the machine to do it. Video games don't really have a good crossover for this, so there's not much to say here. The next one is a different story. Flexibility and efficiency of use. Does Payday 3's UI allow for flexibility and efficiently accomplishes its objectives? And yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to come back to favors here for a second. An additional problem with the favor system, besides the fact that you can't view any inventory of favors that you currently own, is the fact that if you find yourself having not known which favors are in your inventory, you find yourself in a lobby which you wish you could put down an ammo bag or an armor bag or a medic bag, and you can't because you'd have to leave the lobby to go buy them. That's a problem. That's a UX Heuristic 7 problem. So a solution to this would just, hey, like I have in the picture, add a few plus signs in your UI next to each favor and allow the user to buy them in the middle of the lobby. Just make the transaction available in the middle of this process and allow them to put them in. There you go. Problem solved. I say that. I understand it's not so easy sometimes, but it's worth putting in work to improve the UX. Challenges. Dear God, challenges. All right, now I'm going to be tempted to rip Payday 3 a new one here, and I'm going to do my best to remain as professional and stoic, if you will, and constructive, that's the word, constructive as possible, because this system currently is a cluster F blank blank blank. Here's what it looks like. I'll return back to the previous slide. You've got 3 current categories. You've got the heist challenges, the career challenges, and the combat challenges. Now, if you click on heist, for example, as it's highlighted in here, say I click that button, here is what you see. Now, first off, the first thing that you're going to notice is there's no organization past the heist category. Everything else now is free range. You have to sort through everything to find challenges for a specific heist, for example. And the reason why you would want to do that, a use case for you, is that this is literally how you level up, because the IP system replaced the XP unintuitively. So you have to go here to figure out what challenges you have left, so you're not spamming road rage, even though you've beaten all the challenges on it already. So there's no organization past the heist button. And the same thing is true with career and combat. And may I mention, there are combat challenges inside of career for finishing a heist with a weapon with mods equipped. Why are those in career? I don't know. But anyway, here's a proposed design. This is a problem, and it could be solved by doing what's on the next slide. I totally forgot I had this slide. So yeah, the navigation here is cumbersome at best. The way that we would move forward with this and implement a solution is to increase our degree of grouping. Why not do this? So take every single heist that exists in the game currently and make it its own category inside of heists. That way, if I click on Road Rage, I will only see the challenges for Road Rage. And you just do this with your heist, or rather your career and combat challenges. That's a typo on my end. And this to me is somewhat intuitive. This degree of categorization and organization seems very, very intuitive to me. I'll be honest, I don't know why they didn't make it this way, but we're remaining constructive. This is a way to move forward. Additionally, you can implement further filters. If you don't want to do it this way by image-based categorization, you can just put filters instead, say on I'm going back here, combat, right? So if you were to click into combat and you wanted to see challenges related to cloakers, right? Maybe in the space bar, or the R button, on the bottom left, you can cycle through it to find, filter tasers, filter or zappers or whatever, filter naders, filter cloakers. There we go. And now I look at the cloaker ones. There are solutions to this, and these are just a few. But this is a problem that needs to get addressed, and we need to find a solution to this. It's way too clunky, and it will not scale with further heists. We'll talk about that later. Menus. The heist menus. Another point of serious conversation and contention. First of all, let's talk about these story videos. The R button exists on the menus to condense these heists and remove the story videos from the horizontally scrolling heist list. You can press the R button and it does that, but if you launch the game up again, it will not remember your choice. That needs to be stored. That setting must be preserved from instance of game to game. So if I close the game and I relaunch it, it should remember the fact that I don't care about the story videos. And if I do care, I'll press the R button again. So keep that feature available, but remember the preference from game session to game session. So keep it in a JSON or some sort of file storage, a .txt, and just have a setting for story video toggle and just have it on or off. And it will be that simple to implement. But it's something simple like this that'll piss people off and not want to play your game. Okay. Still on the topic of menus, voiceovers and the voice acting for the descriptions of the heists. The only way to turn this off in the game currently is to turn off your voice volume. That also removes the dialogue, the audio, from any in-game chatter between Shade, the heister, say Hoxton or Dallas. Any of those is gone if you don't want to hear this. There needs to be a separate individual voiceover volume scroller, some sort of setting to turn that off specifically instead of having to turn off all voice volume in the game completely. I believe Starbreeze is working on this. So I will hold my peace and we will see what happens. Here is an image of what it looks like when condensed and you press that R button. But there's still a problem. This is a PowerPoint presentation of heists. I'm giving a PowerPoint presentation right now. The heists I'm accessing should not be stored in a PPTX. I shouldn't scroll from left to right. That is so boring. Payday 2 had it wonderfully made when they implemented the CrimeNet feature. Return it. Bring it back. It's such a better UX for the heists. It makes selecting the heists more dynamic and engaging and not PPTX. That would also imply that they would need to change the way that they host their games and lobbies. And I actually think that is a good thing, because the amount of times that I have queued into an empty lobby when I'm trying to find a group for very hard or loud overkill on something, it's like 90% of the time I'll just queue into an empty lobby. That's got to change. Okay. Number 8, aesthetic and minimalist design. Does Payday 3's UI accomplish its objectives with appealing aesthetic and minimal elements? Another one we're going to dig into. Here we go. Vendors, okay? Here's a problem. There's a lot of information density inside of these vendors that does not need to exist. Okay, users, players, never buy charms, stickers, patterns, colors inside of the vendor menu. It never happens. If you are watching this and you consistently buy colors or paint schemes inside of these menus and not when you're consistently or rather customizing your weapon, please DM me. I would be interesting to talk to you and study you as a species because you would be a unicorn. That's not meant to be insulting. That was a joke. But really, people are only buying these assets when they are customizing a gun or a mask. Right? They're not going into these menus going, yeah, I need to pick up a weapon paint scheme 3 and a bright fire brick. I'm going to do that real quick before we heist up. No, they're always doing it when they're customizing the parent object. Ditch these elements. They don't need to exist. You don't need these in your menus. They clutter things and they make people scroll way too much to get to what they need to. And they're distracting. Get them out of here. Here's a question. Take a look at this loadout, right? This layout. You've got a 4-column grid that infinitely scales in the vertical. How well will this UI scale, do you think, as more items are added? How much scrolling will be done? And the answer is a lot of scrolling. So this UI will not scale well. It will become scrolling hell. Now, it's very likely that they will add a bunch of variants as they're adding reskins to assets and selling them individually. That's their MO for some of these customizing assets. If they keep up that trend, this list is going to get really, really long. And that's not going to be great to try to find what you need. The solution to this is to increase your element density, aka increase your column density, aka just add more. Instead of 4 wide, just make it like 5, 6. Even doing that much will increase your scaling greatly. If you want to tackle that problem when it gets there, hey, you cross that bridge when you get there. But just understand that this is a problem you're facing in the future. Okay, the appearance tab. This is clunky. You've currently got 2 loadout tabs. You've got one at the top and then one loadout tab when you click the loadout tab. That's redundant. That shouldn't be the case. And it's definitely not aesthetic. Doesn't look great. A solution to this is to put your appearance tab in between loadout and vendors. So instead of 5 high-level tabs at the top, you've got 6. The layout of that is great. But this way, you can prevent this redundant loadout non-aesthetic here. And also having appearance, which is static, and loadout, which is dynamic. Having those two on the equivalent playing or level depth, if you will, of menu, the menu depth. Having them on the equivalent menu depth doesn't make a lot of sense. So instead, put appearance on its own tab up top. This was a brilliant idea given by the modding community. And the modding community, if there's anybody who knows UX, it's the modding community. They came up with a wonderful idea to color code grit, edge, and rush to colors. In this case, grit blue, edge red, and rush yellow. Color coding those increases UX greatly because instead of 2 adjacent white buffs, it's now a blue, a red, or a yellow. And also in your menu system, if you keep it consistent and color code the perks that activate or interact with these buffs, you color code them to the corresponding color. Wow. What an ingenuitive, is that a word? Ingenious, innovative. I'm trying to think of the word I was trying to say and I can't think of it. What a wonderful way to increase the user experience and make it more pleasant and more aesthetic. What a wonderful idea. Okay, number 9, we're almost there. Help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. Does Payday 3 help users recover from application errors? I would just like for you to take a second, look at the screen, and tell me what information you get and how to move forward. If you were to retrieve this error, you wanted to play the game, what information does this screen give you to move forward? The answer is nothing. It doesn't give you anything. It tells you that something went wrong with matchmaking, and that's it. Nothing about your connection to the server, nothing about the server's response, nothing about, hey, you should restart your game, or hey, the servers are down, try again later. Nothing. It's just matchmaking error. And of course, I don't know all the technical back end. I don't have the years of experience in game design to tell you, like, oh, these are the error codes you need to report. But matchmaking error with a subtitle of matchmaking error is not good UX. It gives me nothing. It's frustrating. Where the heck do I go from here? What do I do? What's wrong? Right? More information should be given on something like this. Lastly, number 10, help and documentation. Does Payday 3 provide helpful application information when needed? And the answer is kinda. Payday 3 has tooltips you can press on the menu with the H button. They exist. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. Like, hey, you got it. Like, they exist. But they don't really tell us anything that we don't already know. Like, loadout. It's like, okay. Anybody who's played a video game before probably understands that loadout is where you set your favorite skills and gear and you pick the right combination. And it should be ubiquitous across all heists, right? So that's somewhat intuitive. So here, a tooltip is given for information that is likely already known. But there are concepts in this game, such as IP, which does have its own tooltip. I didn't show it here. But heist-specific favors, for example, right? How the heck do I acquire those? There's that kind of information. Holy crap. Wow. My ability to speak is decreasing. There is that type of information that could use documentation. That's what I was going for. And that stuff's not intuitive. And we could benefit greatly from having that information available. Yeah, and this would be like a 1 or 2. It's like, yeah, it should be done, but it's not like game breaking. Okay, those are the 10 heuristics that Nielsen put forward. We've done a heuristic evaluation of Payday 3. Again, heuristics being rules of thumb. These are things that should be done, best practices, etc. And here's the deal. Payday 3's UI UX has a lot of work to do. Okay, it's not perfect. There are a lot of major places for improvement, like right now needs to get done. And there's some that are less important, and there's some that are cool ideas, either that the community's made or some guy like me thinks up in his basement and says, hey, that might be a good idea to do. But in any case, we've identified a plethora of tangible steps moving forward. And the good news is Overkill and Starbreeze, they're working on some of these currently, and some being a few that I can think of. So some of them are being worked on, right? But hey, I got my fingers crossed that they listen to this and the community advice moving forward. They have expressed their desire to be open door and open ear to advice, and I'm looking forward to see if they follow up on that. If anybody's curious, and for credit, here's the slides that I used for this presentation. My name is Pepe Chad. Thank you for stopping by. If you have any comments or anything you would like to add to this discussion, things that I missed, please put them in the comments section below. This is not by any means comprehensive. There's going to be stuff I missed. And maybe you disagree with some stuff. Put it in the comments down below. I'm interested to see what you think.